Hi, good evening, everybody. Thanks for hanging in with us. As you can tell, we had a few technical difficulties, a little bit on the audio side this evening, but we're so glad that you hung out with us and waited, because this is going to be a phenomenal show. Listen, I just want to introduce to you my co-host and the co-creator of the Internet Citadel Show. This guy is not only a great friend, a mentor, and a coach. He is has been involved in software engineering for over 23 years. He was involved in a multi-level marketing travel-based business that he also co-created for over 6 years. He is the creator of Tweet Performance, and I want you to look down below. If you've not clicked on that link, take a look at it. It's a wonderful walkthrough for Twitter and to get you going in that area. He is a man of integrity and character, and I'd like to introduce my friend and co-host, Brian Kelly. Hi, Brian.
Hey, Kathy. Thanks so much once again for that glowing introduction. You're always so kind to me, and I appreciate that very much. What I like to do is react in kind and let everybody know who my co-host, Kathy Stover, is, co-creator of this show, wonderful business partner. This show could not go on without her. She's the glue that holds this thing together. She's got a lot of excellent background, operations manager and sales manager for over 25 years with a Fortune 500 company. She's got affiliate marketing going back to the early 90s. I like to say this affectionately. She is the queen of affiliate marketing. Kathy is incredible in online sales. She's got an incredible knack, very talented, very creative. She also has a great deal of network marketing experience dating back to the mid-'80s. So you can see there's a lot of business background as well as marketing and sales. Very, very valuable for anyone trying to build a business. And currently, she is a national marketing and sales director for a phenomenal up-and-coming, I shouldn't even say up-and-coming anymore, it's here, bridal shoe company called Bliss Bridal Shoes. So be sure to check them out on blissbridalshoes.com. And like Kathy said, I want to thank everybody for your patience. We did have a little bit of a glitch there getting going, but I cannot wait to bring on our featured guest. So Kathy, I'm going to shoot it back over to you.
All right, I've got to put my eyeballs on for this. I've got to tell you, we are so excited to have our guest tonight. She is an entertainment industry veteran. Libby Gill spent 15 years heading public relations and corporate communications as Senior Vice President at Universal Studios and Vice President at Sony Pictures Entertainment, Turner Broadcasting. She was also the PR branding brain behind the launch of the Dr. Phil Show. She is an incredible woman. I have had the opportunity to speak with her just over the past couple of days and get to know her a little bit. I just have to tell you that among her achievements, Libby is most proud of having guided many professionals to career success. That is just one of the multitude of things that this woman has done so far in her life. It's just absolutely vast. As I said before, she was instrumental in creating the comprehensive media launch that catapulted the Dr. Phil Show. She has been involved in all types of publicity and advertising promotion with Sony. I could go on and on, but I'll tell you what, we appreciate you holding. So far, she is a phenomenal woman. I would like to introduce our guest tonight, Libby Gill, the author of the most recent book, You Unstuck. Hi, Libby. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Kathy. Thanks so much. Boy, talk about glowing, Brian. I think I got the glowingest there.
Well deserved. Well deserved.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to get right in, because we've had everybody wait here a few minutes. But I had mentioned your book, You Unstuck, Libby, and what I'd like to ask is, what inspired you to write this book? And it also, beyond the You Unstuck, is mastering new rules of risk-taking. So what prompted you to write that?
You know, I was an executive, like you mentioned, for many years, and the part that I loved the most about it was really helping people shape that path to success, to really find out what they wanted to do and how they were going to get there. And that's what I took with me into the coaching world. And I've now been a coach, coaching business people for almost a decade. It'll be 10 years out on my own as an entrepreneur this fall. And one of the most interesting things that I found was I was very surprised over the years of coaching that people who seem to have it all, they seem to have great skills and really good resources, education, everything. I would frequently have two people who seem to be sort of similar in terms of their background, and yet one would take off and the other would just stay stuck in whatever the sort of limiting assumptions about their own value or their own capabilities. And I really tried to speed up the growth curve and to help them take risks, bigger and bolder risks, much faster than they would do on their own. And that's what really, it was really working with two women who seemed to be like they should be sort of neck and neck in terms of transition, and one just blasted off, and the other, it took about a year before she was able to make that huge leap, which she finally did. And I just decided I'm going to dedicate the next few years to finding out what unlocks that rapid growth spurt and helps people make the change more quickly, and that's what You Unstuck is all about.
Now, Libby, you said as a coach and an entrepreneur, you have helped many others get unstuck, but how about you yourself? Have you ever been in that position of being stuck in your personal or professional life?
Oh, no, not me, never. I've never been stuck in any area of absolutely. And I think, you know, it's so often you teach what you want to learn, and it was the same for me. I was in my corporate life, which was great fun at times, but there was a point where I'd sort of overstayed my welcome at the party. You know, I'd kind of done everything there was to do in that field, and I hit that crossroad of I could stay here the rest of my life and do the same thing for another 20 years, or I can get out and try something new in the world. And it's always scary to try something unknown. But when I was in my late 40s at that time, when a lot of people say, you know, you should be winding down, it's over, you're too old, you're too tired, you're too whatever, or your mortgage is too high, I left the corporate world. I started my own business. I published my first book. I ended up being divorced, not because of all of that, but started over a single person, bought my first house by myself, all of that in 1 year. So, but it was that real period of discomfort that made me look at it and think, I've got to make these changes. If I don't, I could continue down this path, which wasn't bad, but it wasn't, I knew there was somewhere else for me. So, yeah, absolutely. Oh, and I also lost 30 pounds during the midst of all that change. So I know a lot about being stuck, and I know a lot about getting unstuck, and that's what I try to help people do.
Well, you just gave
absolutely phenomenal on both accounts.
Yeah. Yeah, you just gave a lot of
well,
people.
It's not something I suggest. I'm sorry, go ahead, Brian.
Well, I was just going to say, you just gave a lot of people a lot of hope with the sentence there that all of this happened in your 40s. For those of us that are in our 40s, like, you know, myself and others, it's never too late to start on a different path in your life. And you're a perfect testament to that. And I appreciate that you brought that up, because so many people get to a point and they say, it's over, like you said. Perfect. Sorry to interrupt there, Kathy.
It's never over, though. There are accounts of people going back to medical school in their 60s, you know, adopting children in their 50s. And by the way, when you said bridal shoes with Kathy, does that mean like shoes that you wear at a wedding?
Yes.
Is that because I'm 55 and just got, let's see if you can see it, just got engaged.
Oh.
Congratulations.
So I'm about to be married, too.
Well, I'm going to have to hook you up with
thank you. It's never... Yeah, I heard that bridal, and it was either horses and bridals or weddings and bridal. But back to what you said, there's always hope. Yeah, weddings. It's the limiting assumptions that we give into, that we believe. And the thing as a coach that people are always surprised that I say is that your excuses are usually true. You may be too old. You may not have enough money. You certainly don't have enough time, because none of us do. You may not be smart enough. You may be too this, too. None of that matters. It's what you're going to do to transcend those truths is what makes the difference. So if you can say, you know what, I really don't have enough time or money, but I'm going back to school anyway. I'm going to do this, or whatever it is. I'm going to start that business anyway. And it's the people that decide, I'm going to do what it takes. And it's not going to be comfortable, and it may not be easy, and it'll definitely be scary, but I don't care. I'm not going to let these old self-beliefs stop me from what I'm meant to do.
Phenomenal.
That's awesome. That's incredible. And I was thinking even not just going through the divorce and the other life-changing events, but weight loss too. I mean, to go through a period of time in your life which is stressful, and to be able to get through that and to lose weight on top of it, just to me is phenomenal. Because that's a hard thing to do all at the same time.
It was a hard thing to do, and some of it was, the weight will creep on when we're unhappy or unsatisfied. Any emotional eater knows that. So over my years in the corporate world, and also having 2 kids and kind of getting lazy and overworking and not paying attention to that aspect of life. And that's an interesting thing I find when people are stuck, is that they can be highly successful and really great at whatever it is they do, and yet they can be stuck in one area. So they might throw all their energy into their career, but not spend any time, looking for a suitable mate or spending time with the one they have, or they may not pay any attention to their health or fitness, or they may have no friends. You look around one day and say, I haven't invested any time or energy into having friends. So it can be that one area where you're really stuck, and as we get more stuck, we tend to ignore that and put our focus on the things that make us feel good, and we'll just, close that closet door and shove those things further away. Or there's the other end of the spectrum where people feel stuck, just shut down, stuck, don't know where I'm headed, don't know what I want, don't even know what I'm passionate about. And I will often have people come to me and say, I don't even know what my passion is. And my response is usually, I don't believe it. It may be buried, but you know what you're passionate about. We all know what makes us tick. We all know what makes us want to jump up in the morning and go right to it, whether it's having fun or working or hanging out with your kids or, it's whatever it is. And when people say, gee, I just don't have that passion anymore, they've become so stuck in their own routine that they've lost it. And it's a skill. It's like a muscle you got to rebuild and find it. I just interviewed a woman, amazing story. She's on my podcast on LibbyGill.com, and she decided after being stuck in this routine that she said had become stagnant and boring. And I said, what did it feel like? And she said, it was like spending your entire life washing dishes. Nothing wrong with it, but it was boring, repetitive, dull, monotonous. I mean, it was everything you don't want your life to be. So what she did is she thought, well, okay, I'm through with that. I'm going to just go shop for my dream job. And she went on the website for Doctors Without Borders, thinking, gee, I've always wanted to do something really good and important for the world. She was an HR person and thought, I don't know. They're doctors. What do they need with a human resources and finance background? Lo and behold, she finds the job postings, and what do you know? There's an opening for someone in HR and finance. She applies, decides, I'm not going to think about it anymore. 6 weeks later, they call her for an interview. 2 weeks later, she's got the job, goes through the training program, and now she's on her second trip. She went to Kenya for 8 months, and now she's on her second trip to go back to Africa for a year. Now, talk about getting unstuck and living a life that is no longer dishwashing, although she said there's an occasional dish to wash, but that's okay because she's found this huge sense of purpose. And it's that thing that we have, and sometimes we don't know what that thing is, but for her it was, I need to do something that's significant. I need to do something that's important in the scheme of things. And just on that, oh gosh, what have I got to lose kind of whim, which is when a lot of us shut ourselves down. We just stop, who am I to go on the Doctors Without Borders site? I don't have anything to offer. But she just got past that and thought, well, I don't know. Maybe I don't. Maybe I'll feel foolish, but I've got nothing to lose. It's just that one thing. Just do it. And she did, and now 2 years later has a completely different life. And those are the stories. And she considered herself quite the ordinary person, just a regular working gal. And she gave up a home. She found a new home for her dogs, and she didn't have kids. I said, you can't really farm the kids out too easily. As you know, you're a mom. I couldn't do that either. Right. But there's always a thing that you can do, that purpose, that real sense of passion gets unlocked, and you find that again. And that's what being unstuck is all about to me.
Well, what a phenomenal story. And by the way, congratulations on your engagement. That's exciting.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I'm so tickled. I just have to share it with the world.
Oh, you bet. Listen, in your
Yeah.
first chapter of your book, Unstuck, you say in there that if somebody follows your program faithfully, you will personally coach them, and if they follow your program faithfully, you will make a guarantee with them that, and I've got to look at what your guarantee is here, I want to make sure, that they get positive results if they follow you faithfully.
Right. If they don't get the result.
That's kind of a big risk.
Well, I have great confidence in people's ability to change. And I don't think you change your entire being. Who you are is who you are. But the actions and the behaviors and mostly the beliefs about yourself, you can absolutely change those. And I believe in the program that I put together because it worked for me and for the hundreds, if not now thousands of people that I have coached through this process. So what I say is if you do this, if you really follow this process, which I explain in great detail, and it doesn't work for you, pick up the phone and call me, because if you're really moving forward to change and things are not opening up and changing for you, I'll coach you through it. And guess how many calls I've gotten from the thousands of people that have read the book so far?
With your level of confidence, I'm going to say probably none.
That's right, none. Because if you're here and you know you want to be here, all you have to do is identify. And I have a 3-step process because I'm sort of an abstract thinker. I sometimes think I'll spiral off the planet if I don't nail things down to the floor. So what I do is try to have a very simple system, and this is it. And I'm forever saying to my kids, here's the secret to life. Here's the secret. So here's my secret to being unstuck is first you've got to clarify the vision. So it's really about what is that thing? Even if it's hazy, like this woman, Catherine, with Doctors Without Borders. She just knew she wanted to give back in a big, bold way. That was the vision. So clarify the vision. Next, simplify the path. Because what most of us do is complicate. We throw every obstacle. If the world doesn't do it for us, we do it for ourselves. So you've got to clarify the vision. You simplify the direct route to get there. And then you execute that plan against measurable milestones. So that instead of beating yourself up for your shortcomings, dwelling on what you don't have, can't have, or didn't do, it's about creating this vision of what you want in your life. And I'll give you another great example out of You Unstuck. There's a woman who is an elementary school teacher, and when I met her, and it was part of this big coaching challenge as a part of a corporate program, and I came in as the coach, she wanted to lose weight. Now, she had been obese her entire adult life. She was 300 pounds when I met her. And she said she'd always lost a few pounds, gained it back, gained some more, lost a few, that kind of yo-yo thing. And when she came into this program, I'm not a dietitian. I just know, set the program and execute the plan. So she set up a plan of accountability. I hooked her up with a weight loss expert. And she began to hold herself accountable to a daily check-in with her weight coach and a daily exercise. She'd never exercised in her life and discovered it was really fun. Now, I haven't had that discovery yet. I do it because I have to. But she opened up this whole new world of sports and athleticism. So she had the daily check-in with the weight loss coach to talk about what she was eating, what her patterns of behavior were, a daily exercise check-in. Because she had to be at school at 7, she went to the gym at 5:30. She had all her gym buddies then, and she had a weekly weigh-in. And then we hooked in a lot of her community in Milan, Michigan. So she got about 75 other people in her town to join her on this weight loss journey. They've lost collectively now more than a ton, and she's lost 150 pounds. She's lost a person, and she attributes it all to those baby steps of staying accountable to the plan. And it wasn't anything except having this clear vision, no longer beating herself up and expecting some miraculous, overnight weight loss, but it was a vision of who she would be. She was going to be thin enough to feel good, to buy new clothes, to fit in an airplane seat comfortably, and most of all, to be a role model to her elementary school kids. That to her was this driving force, and that was the vision. I get a little chills. You know, you've got to have that vision that is so visceral and so real that you keep that foremost in your mind, so that even when the world is giving you a really bad day or week or year, that vision, it's there to just pull you out and pull you forward. So you may detour, you may fall off your plan, you may cheat on your whatever, but you get back on it. You don't abandon it. And it was so lovely. I'm still in touch with her, and there's a great profile about her in You Unstuck. But it was really knowing now she takes the groups of kids, I think she said they roller skate through the hallways in the school, and she's always challenging them to cook at home and then bring in some kind of recipe for rutabaga or something that they'd never tried before, some kind of fruit or vegetable, starfruit, rutabaga, squash, and they'll come in and talk about this new way of eating. So she's inspired a whole generation of kids. And it's all about staying accountable to that clear process that you set up for yourself. It's simple, but it's not easy. You know what to do, and that's what 80% of the people who come to me for coaching, they know what they need to do, and they know how to do it, but it's staying accountable and passionate, recommitting to that vision every single day. That's the difficult part, and that's where most of us fall off.
And one thing that just separated you from many people I hear talk about similar things is you just said it's simple, but it's not easy. So, it's not just a get fixed quick type of approach. It's something that will take repetition, perhaps habit changes that would help you to keep on that track. This sounds phenomenal. And Kathy, you and I have been through many different types of seminars and this, that, and the other. A lot of what Libby is saying is falling right in line with every successful person we have ever met. So when you're listening to Libby, listen to Libby. Listen to what she's saying. Her credentials are, just go to her website while you're watching this show on internetcitadel.com. Be sure to click on her nose, I always say, just to our left here as you're watching the show. It will open up in a separate window, and it will take you directly to her website. And also beneath, as you can see, is an image of her book, You Unstuck. If you click on that, that will take you directly to a page that describes in vivid detail the contents of the book. I rarely see that kind of a description of a book. It seemed like reading the book right there. It was phenomenal. And then also be sure to check out my accountability club beneath that. Definitely click on that, and then you can get the real meat and potatoes of what she is discussing right now. We do have many more questions to go over with Libby, so Kathy, let's keep this ball rolling.
Well, Libby, what does accountability have to do with personal success?
Well, that's a good question, and what it comes down to is, for so many people, we fall into, again, back on that continuum of we are either the creative, the visionary types, as clearly the two of you are, and then, at the other end of the spectrum are the more operational, the more logistical. So they're the dreamers of the world and the doers of the world, and both definitely have their place. But if we default to one without the other, we're losing a huge opportunity. So it's really critical to understand that you've got to hold yourself accountable to a vision, and you may be great at coming up with a vision, not so great at executing it, but that's why you've got to have that ironclad plan and possibly other people to support you. I mean, not possibly, definitely other people to support you. And for some people, it's the other way around. They're great supporters, they're great operations people, they're great collaborators, but they're not necessarily the visionaries who want to be out front and center. And that's another thing I talk about in You Unstuck is as much as I resist labels and being stuck in that little box, there are, of course, sort of archetypes, and we've got personality traits. So I look at I call this your leadership DNA, and it's really sort of who we are and how we operate. And there are four main types, as I see it. One is the director type, and directors are the leaders and the visionaries, the people who are out front and center. And it's also good to know what your default patterns are so that you can be very clear on how you would routinely respond to stress or stimuli or change. And in addition to directors, there are the supporters, the people who, just like that word implies, who are there to help, collaborate, support, do some of the heavy lifting, but don't necessarily want to be out front and center. There are the analysts of the world, not my strong suit, people who are great with data, with information, with numbers, who can, research and put it all together. And as you build this team of these different types of people, and there's also, of course, the thrill seekers, I call them, the creative, sometimes the creative zanies, who, they're the ones who got to be front and center. They want to be out there. They often can rally a group. They can motivate people to take action. Now, they don't necessarily want to get their hands dirty and do all the, they want to be the life of the party, but they don't want to do the dishes afterwards. But we need those people. So if you can build a team of people who sort of hit all those notes, and if you understand what your strong suits are and your weak suits, I will cop to being a director and a thrill seeker. I like to be the creative visionary. I like to be front and center. I'm much more comfortable on a stage with 1,000 people out there than at a small cocktail party where I've got to make small talk. I need a task. I'm comfortable going after that vision. I'm not a great operations person. I'm not a great systems person. To witness the reason we were late tonight was because of my lack of understanding about the technical side. But when you have all those pieces together, and I will bet that the two of you, bring out those strengths in each other. Great partnerships are formed by people who have that sort of common bond of ethics, but have different skill sets and strengths and different things they can bring to the table. Those are the best collaborations in teams. And having that understanding of what our strong suits and what our weak suits are, people often, left to their own devices, will build a team of people who are very much like themselves. When in fact you want to do the opposite of that. You want to build a team of people who are like-minded in spirit and in their sense of not necessarily collaboration, but their sense of honor. But you want to build people who have different mind and skill sets. And that's a good way to do it, is to understand your own and the people who operate around you. So to me, when you understand that about yourself, what keeps you accountable, how you're going to reach that level of success, that has a lot to do with it. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Absolutely.
It does. Absolutely.
Okay. Good.
I got it.
Just listening. Go ahead, Brian.
Nope, you're up.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, here we go. The standoff. I got a tough question for you, Libby, and I think I know the answer based on I've just met you right now during this show. Typically, we both get to meet our guest speakers well in advance, but I had a lot of schedule conflicts. That was my fault. But I've heard a lot about you from Kathy. She raved about you. Said you were just a wonderful, wonderful, and nice person to talk to in person. But just kind of curious, do you yourself ever have a problem with accountability?
I do. I'll admit that I do, because like most people, we've got our areas of strength, and I'm a little bit of a workaholic, although I could turn off my cell phone and my BlackBerry and be okay. But my area that I've got to really hold myself to is fitness. And I used to dance in my younger days. I was a dance minor in college, and that was great fitness. And I have a real appreciation of strength and athleticism. And I'm not a natural athlete at all, so I've really got to watch that. And I used to joke, well, not joke, I think for the first 10 years I was serious that I was going to run a marathon by the time I was 50. And, the years kind of ticked along, and I'm a list maker, so I would just roll that from one list to the next until I finally realized there was no way I was ever in my lifetime going to run a marathon. Great respect for people who do, but I wasn't one of them. So I finally thought, I've got to find, if I'm going to stick to a fitness plan and hold myself accountable, it's got to be fun. It's got to be convenient. I've got to have other people that do it with me. So I now take yoga, aerobics, dance classes. I take a class called NIA that's a sort of a combination of modern dance and martial arts, which is great fun. And I've got a weight trainer, and he does the fast weight. So left to my own thing, no. I'd be drinking a nice glass of champagne and reading a book. And that doesn't really keep you fit, especially when you get past 50. So I've got to watch it just like everybody else. And it was interesting on my accountability club, which is my coaching group, born out of this whole idea that we all need that support. It's either a kick in the rear end or a gentle pat on the back or somewhere in between. And I hold people very much accountable to their goals. And I've got a framework for that they go online onto the website and they list their milestones, where they want to be in a month, and specific game changers, I call them the game changer goals, small actions that they commit to that will get them there. And I've had people who ran the gamut from wanting to lose weight to wanting to increase their client base. And it's a pretty broad span, so I just split it into 2 tracks. So there's a personal track and a professional track. And a lot of people are on both tracks. And the first thing that came out of the personal track was everybody had a fitness concern. I mean, virtually everybody in the Accountability Club wanted to either lose weight, get back on their fitness plan, increase their energy, have more fun with their fitness plans, mix it up with some kind of cross-training or fun fitness. And so the first thing I did is I went out and got a whole list of fitness experts who come at it from different directions, so that it's not just, eat less, move more, which, just like my mother always said, is the key to weight loss. And we all know that. It's intuitive and obvious, and yet it's not easy. So you got to build that arsenal of ways you can do that, from having your buddy waiting at the track for you at 6:30 in the morning before you go to work, and knowing that the only thing you'd hate more than going to the track at 6:30 is standing up your buddy who's at the track at 6:30.
Yeah.
So you've got to find those ways to get that leverage on yourself, or finding a class that's really fun and exciting. I work up a sweat in this Nia dance class, and an hour zooms by, and it's all high intensity, and it's so much fun because it's Latin rhythms and African dance and a little kickboxing thrown in, and I realized, wow, I just got a workout. Who would have thought it? So it's really providing people with different skills, different ideas that mix up their routine, because the worst thing you can do is fall into this routine that becomes, it's like the dishwashing thing that my podcast person said from Doctors Without Borders. All of a sudden, it feels like all you're doing is washing dishes. And if your health and fitness routine becomes that, then you're going to drop it because it's not fun anymore. So it's this constant way of finding ways to recommit, these new beginnings, because it's not so much about reinventing, it's about reinvesting constantly in this vision. And mine is to fit into a wedding dress. So, that's only going to last for a few months, and then I got to find something else. But that's good motivation, and
Yes.
But it's also knowing I got to get up and stand in front of a crowd, and I want, and I'm pretty frugal, and I'm not a big clothes horse, but I've got a killer Armani suit that I love, and if I get too chubby to fit into that, I'm not going to be happy. So that's my control. As the scientists say, that's my control unit, and once I don't fit into that, then I got to get back on the wagon. So it's whatever motivates and adds that leverage to you. And finding it can be a real trick, but people in a like-minded group are really great about throwing out suggestions and new ideas and fresh input and offering that feedback and encouragement to other people. And that's really the beauty of a group, just like you've got a group of people who follow you on this show. And it's this constant, throw some new information, some new ideas, some encouragement, some new energy at me. And if they stick to it, and the people that you bring on with what you say and the experts that you provide, if they just take one little nugget of information away, you've done your job. And the experts have done their job. And now it's up to your audience to go out and apply that in real life.
Wow, I couldn't have said that any better. Could you, Kathy?
You hit the nail on the head
Exactly.
there, that's for sure.
Well, you can provide the experience, but they got to go out and do it.
Right.
And do it. Yeah, and this is something that has happened to me, and I'm sure that it's happened to other people out there. And Brian and Lydia, I'm not sure if it's happened to you, but why is it that we get all excited about setting a plan and a goal, and then as time goes on, it just dissipates?
Definitely.
Why is that?
But I actually did a lot of brain research and reporting for You Unstuck. I was a columnist in the Dallas Morning News for several years, and my column was in the health section. So it was great motivation to pick up the phone. I mean, it was such a wonderful playground. Pick up the phone and call a positive psychologist or a neuroeconomist and get a quote from them for my column. And it really trained me to take that very seriously. So in You Unstuck, I'm really proud of the blend of brain research and study and a coaching process. So what I found out was our brains really respond. We are wired to respond to new stimuli, and that's part of what's kept us alive all these centuries, is that it's part of the fight or flight mechanism, where we respond to danger and negativity. It really wakes us up because we got to get the heck out of there if we're in the path of danger. And the same part of the brain that responds to danger responds to newness. We brighten up when something's new. And there are countless studies that talk about when you're on vacation and you're at a mall, say, that's not your own mall that you're used to at home, and you're in that vacation mode where everything's new. It's like being in love, where the brain chemicals are swirling. And scientists have said being in love releases all these hormones and brain chemicals, not unlike being on a cocaine high. Being in a mall where you're out somewhere and it's exciting and new and different, whatever that leather jacket or that dress or that bag that you would never buy back home because it's too expensive, suddenly seems to be right in your price range because it's that level of newness and excitement. It was funny, I had a fellow on my accountability club call who was a sign maker and said, or he was he's a handyman, but had done something for a sign maker in his neighborhood, who said, it's like the political signs. When you put a sign in the neighborhood, there's the 10-day rule. And this fellow said, well, what's the 10-day rule? And the sign maker said, if you put a sign in your front yard, either for rent or for sale, or vote yes on Proposition 9 or whatever it is, you've got about 10 days before people zone it out. They just don't even see it anymore. The scientists call this habituation, where our brain becomes, it's no longer a threat or danger or new, so we tune it out, which is why if you drive the same way to work every day, you know the way. You don't even have to think about where you're going. You don't see the sidewalk, the houses, the lights, anything. You're just on autopilot. But if you take a completely different route to work, suddenly, especially somewhere you haven't been, you're paying attention. You're seeing the road signs, you're seeing the houses, you're seeing the strip malls, whatever it is. Your brain is reacting to new stimuli. Our goals are just like that. If you've had the same goal forever and you haven't thrown any newness in to freshen it up or reinvest in that goal, you become, if there's such a word as disenamored. You're no longer enamored of whatever that goal was that got you started. You've got to find new ways for the newness factor to kick in. If it's a fitness goal, by having a buddy, by taking a new class. If it's business motivation, you better read a new book, get to a seminar, go online, learn something new. You've constantly got to be switching it up. Because if you could just say, oh, I'm going to do this one thing, it's going to work for the rest of my life. There are a handful of people that works for. You've got one job and you're going to do it for 30 years. I don't know many of them anymore. For most of us, and especially for entrepreneurs, but also for people in the corporate world, you've got to be adding new levels of information. You've got to be upping your own personal brand. You've got to be bringing new information and life to the party, or you become old news. So it's really how we're wired, and it's really fascinating to learn that those are the things that we've got to know about how we tick and how our brains work. Which was a really long way of answering your question, but that's why we fall off goals.
That makes good sense to me.
Absolutely.
Doesn't it to you, Brian?
Yeah, there were a lot of things you said in there that hit a nerve, not a good nerve. You talked about going to seminars, reading books, meeting with like-minded people. Getting into what we call mastermind groups is getting with like-minded people as well. Kathy and I have been really concentrating on that of late, and we have seen an amazing amount of growth in what we are doing in every avenue of our business right now. It's unbelievably exciting, and we're in that phase at this very moment as we're talking tonight on the show. And what you are saying, Libby, is ringing very true in my brain. This is like spot on, because we are now at the point of living it, don't you think, Kathy?
Absolutely, yeah. It's resonating with me in the same way, exactly.
Well, and you're challenging your viewers at the same time. They've done the internet radio. They've done, I'm sure many of them are familiar with seminars and webinars, but you've added a new twist to the technology that's made people, myself included, we got to learn a new trick or two if we're going to keep up with this. This is really interesting. I'm going to add something new to my repertoire in order to get this new information. That inherently, just that, gets people engaged and excited because you've turned on a little piece of their brain that they've got to, they've got to step up their own game a little bit if they're going to follow the two of you. And it's like the researchers have found there's something called plasticity with your brain. At first they thought you really couldn't retrain your brain, and now with all the fascinating improvements in neuroimaging and brain science and scanning, it's so fascinating what people are finding out. And what they're seeing is as people age, and if we're fortunate enough to live till old age, it's very likely that we will all suffer from some level of dementia. If you live to 100, you're going to lose some brain cognition. But the things that can change, literally rewire your neural pathways and help you learn are the things that you do repetitively, intensely, and deeply. It's not just a new level of crossword puzzles, although crossword puzzles are very good. You've got to do something you haven't done before and take it to a new height. Learning the violin, if you're not a musician, taking on a foreign language, learning something new and different at a very difficult and challenging level. I fully plan when I hit 60 or 70, it's not going to be like my marathon goal. I really plan to learn French or Italian, and I'm a little conversant in some language, a little bit of Spanish, but I'm going to really study it because and I'm going to go out and seek the conversations. I'd love to learn a musical instrument. I'm not musical. Both of my kids are. I've got a trombone player and a guitarist, and I just know the challenge of sitting down at a piano, and I'll get the piano teacher and take the baby lessons, but those are things that really rewire pathways, and it's so intriguing. The people who can be 90, or my mother's 90, sharp as a tack. I can't imagine her, but she's a voracious reader. She's always doing something new. She took up race sailing in her 70s. She's played golf every Saturday for as long as I could remember. And it's that level of challenge and difficulty that you've got to throw at yourself in order to keep your brain stimulated and alive. And those are the things that get me really excited.
Well,
that's really interesting. My mom is 78 years old, and she just started her own blog, like back in November, a recipe blog, And she's constantly learning, and in fact, she's probably watching tonight, but she's constantly learning and, hi Mom, and absorbing any kind of internet marketing or anything new that she can learn. And I do believe that keeps her more cognizant than a lot of the people that she hangs around with,
Absolutely, because she's got to learn some technical skills. She's got to keep her recipes fresh. We've all got some sort of talent that we can take on or offline, but that requires a whole complex set of skills. If she's serious about it, or even marginally serious about it, and it could be a very small network of people, but she's got to be consistent. She's got to be thinking about her audience. She's got to be testing new recipes. I think that's a fabulous thing to do, and I encourage anybody, and not just as we age, but at any age of life, to continue to try those new things. There's nothing better. I mean, to me, the most exciting quality anybody can have is curiosity, and to have the willingness to then follow up on it and do something with it is that's the sexiest trait in a human being, as far as I'm concerned, is the level of curiosity.
Well, now that I've mentioned it, I have to plug her site. Her blog, she'll just love this, Mom. Your blog is therecipeniche.com. therecipeniche.com. I'm going to go check that out, and she knows about RSS feeds and that sort of thing now. Well, she's learning about RSS feeds, but she is putting recipes in very frequent. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to check that out. That's on my list. I'm a decent, but sort of a marginal chef, and I really would like to be much better at it. And it's, there are things we can just sort of challenge and up our game, and those are the things that's what increases the richness of life, when we decide those little skills or talents that many of us, if we're good at something, we tend to take it for granted. Mm-hmm. But how do you take that skill that you have and either share it with others, charge people for it. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, people that are good at something assume everybody else is, when in fact they're often not, and there's a value in
Right.
that skill. And I'm not suggesting your mom charge for it unless she wants to, but you never know. She may start an online recipe club or something, but good for her.
That sounds like a great idea right there. Online
Yeah.
recipe club.
Yeah.
Well,
A
one thing
subscription
she
club,
does
you know?
have is a phenomenal coach and mentor, and that is her daughter, Kathy. Kathy is
I would.
phenomenal.
It doesn't surprise me a bit.
Well, thank you very much, but I have to tell you, we have a question from somebody watching, and they say, how do you help someone that is afraid to fail?
Nice one.
You know, to me, that's a good question, and I hear that a lot, and it's the flip side of someone who's afraid of success, which I don't really buy as a concept. I think if people claim that, they're really afraid to fail. I think it's how you set your definition. And if you have a definition of success and a definition of failure, then it becomes a lot easier. For me, the definition of failure is the lack of learning. So if I try a recipe, and my kids hate it, which has happened more than once, I'll tell you that, or I try something in business and it doesn't work, that's okay, because I've learned what doesn't work, and that's fine. I'd be very happy to only hit it out of the park every single time I tried something, but that's unlikely. So to me, if your definition is unrealistic about your financial expectation, the kind of acclaim you will get, that your reputation will soar, that you'll do it perfectly, which is just a huge trap, then yeah, the odds are that you will fail. And if you're setting your definition of success too high or too unrealistically, you need to reframe that. And that's is your listener writing back. I hope that resonates and makes sense, because that to me is it's a failure of definition. It's not failure across the board. So reframe your definition. And if you can't do it because you're locked into perfectionism, get some feedback from others about what's realistic and appropriate. If you say, I'm going to go out with this new program and I'm going to sign up 300 clients this month, and the most you've ever signed up, I worked with an insurance person in the accountability club, and she said, I'm going to go out and sign, I think it was 50 clients. I'm going to sign 50 contracts this month. I said, wow, that sounds like a lot. I don't know your business. Is that realistic? What's the most you've ever done in a month? And she said 6. I said, well, 50 seems like a really big step. What if you doubled it, which still sounds really ambitious, but what if you doubled it, and that's your milestone? I'm going to sign 12 new contracts this month. Now I want to know what the game changers are. What will you do differently in order to double your client base, your contract signed? That we're bringing in a realm of realism. Because if you set the bar so high that it's not doable, you've sabotaged yourself. You've set yourself up for failure instead of success. So I think it might have something to do with your unrealistic expectation and this little nagging, you're a failure and you're always going to be voice, and you're a slave to that voice. So you've got to check that. And another thing you can do is look at what those voices, that negative chatter is, and counter that with the positive chatter. So if it's I'm going to try this, but I know it's going to fail, you've got to reframe that as, I'm going to try this, and boy, won't it be valuable, no matter how it turns out, whatever I learn is going to be invaluable to my process.
Yes.
That's what I would recommend to your listener that wrote in that question.
That has got
reframe
to be,
that.
That is the best definition I have ever heard in my life of failure. You know, the lack of learning. Kathy and I discuss this often. We've been over this, where we don't look at stumbling or falling down a little bit as a failure. We look at it as we have invested either time or money or both into furthering our education. If you take that twist, turn it into a positive. It's not that we set out, and if we didn't reach our goal today, it doesn't mean we can't reach it tomorrow. What we learned and what caused us to not reach that goal is something that tells us what we should not redo the next time, so that we can get higher and closer to our goal the next time. So that was absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. And if you know the hundreds of things not to do, that's going to make it a lot easier to figure out what to do. And just like you said with stumbling, there's a great quote, and now it escapes me, I think it's a Chinese proverb, that falling down is not failure,
right.
Not getting up is the failure.
Love it.
So, and that goes back to the lack of learning. I had to decide what meant success and failure, because I'm a recovering perfectionist, and I just didn't want to live in that trap anymore. And the corporate world, and part of my job, I was the head of corporate communications at a studio. I was the one who had to know all the facts, who had to know how to spell everybody's name and get the quotes right and do everything and be this reservoir of intellectual history and knowledge. And boy, it got really tiring after a while. I'd much rather go out on the ledge. And now I tell people, if you're 80% of the way there, because that's another question that I often get is, well, how do you know when it's time to put up that new website or go forward with that product or that service that you're planning? If you're 80%, even 75% of the way there, 75% with confidence, 80% with unsurety, you've got to go, because your clients and customers will teach you the other 20%. You will only learn it through what doesn't work. It's the complaints that you learn from. And I'll tell you, when I launched my Accountability Club, and it's got a very complex website behind it, a membership site, there's lots of downloadable tools, and every call is recorded. I've got lots of experts. But I didn't get the technology right overnight. And I had a few complaints from people who said, the site is frustrating, it's too hard, I can't log in, it's booting me out, this isn't happening. And I said, and the first person that said, I think I've got to drop out, this is too complicated, I said, let's find a way for this to work. How about you be the charter member on my advisory board? Because I need to hear from people who are having trouble. And I want to know specifically what those are. And I turned, it's the old turn lemons into lemonade. Yeah. And this person, this is a true story, was so honored to have her complaints taken so seriously. She's now my greatest source of feedback. Love that expert. I love that call. This was great. You know what you could do? How about opening office hours so all the Accountability Club members can call you once a week and do a 5-minute laser-focused session? I said, that's a great idea. I'm going to do that. So that is exactly how you learn. And you've got to institutionalize failure, or you're just not taking enough risks.
My goodness. This is nugget after nugget after nugget once again.
Well, I'll go on forever. I've turned my hard knocks into nuggets.
Well, let me ask you this, because you wanted to share, I think, something with our viewers tonight. Tell us a little bit about the Accountability Club and how it launched with your book, how it works in conjunction with that.
Well, I'm a big believer in, walk your talk. So I had this idea in my head for a long time, because what I found, a lot of the people that I coached, the ones that fell into the, I know what I need to do, but I'm not doing it, or, okay, I've got the tools and the knowledge now, but it's really scary to apply it. I wanted to build this group of like-minded people and guide them as a group, and part of it was economic, because there were so many people, and there are so many people that can't afford a coach. They can't do they can't afford that weekly phone call or the sessions or the support that they need. So I decided I would form a group. And I've got this accountability group now, and when this was coming sort of into vision in my head, I thought, well, I've got to solidify this. So I wrote about it in You Unstuck. Now, mind you, I had no such group at the time, but I knew if I wrote about it and the book was going to be published on a deadline, I better, I painted myself into that corner. So I knew I was going to have to launch it. I was going to have to find the team or build it myself. And fortunately, I've got this great team of a social media expert and an online branding person, and a marketing person and a salesperson who've helped me really build this. And it sounds like they've got a lot of the expertise that you have, Kathy, and Brian as well. But I got that. I held myself accountable by publishing it and making it then real and accessible. And I built this group, and it's grown, and I hold myself accountable by telling my group, if there's something that's not working, you got to let me know. If there's a type of expert you want on this call, from finance to fitness to sales and marketing, you need to let me know, and I will bring them forward to you. So that's how I held myself accountable. And what I want to do tonight, with your permission, is to give away a membership. I'm going to give away a month membership, which includes 2 phone calls on the professional track and the personal track. And I've got a great expert on the professional track who is the author of a book called Self-Promotion for Introverts, A Quiet Guide to Getting Ahead, which is just fabulous, and she's amazing. Her name is Nancy Ankowitz, and she'll be on the call at the end of March, the last Thursday of March. And the middle of March, I've got a great fitness expert who's got a website called Service to Self, and he talks about releasing weight as opposed to losing weight, and his name is Freeman Michaels. So the first person among your viewer listeners that sends me an email at libbygill.com and says, and just puts myaccountabilityclub.com in the subject line, they're going to get a free month's membership.
Wow.
And I encourage everybody to just go take a look, and because it's not pricey. Right now it's $25 for both tracks for a month. So you get all sorts of web tools and access to everything. Now, I've started these 2 tracks, and I will start charging for the dual tracks, I call it. But for your listener, your viewer is going to get both tracks right away. So it's pretty exciting to see how that's grown.
That's incredible.
Go ahead.
That's incredible. That's absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for offering that. And I've got to tell you, Brian and I were talking about it after we looked at your site, and your price point is it's just insane for what you offer. It is so reasonably priced for what you're offering out there. It is absolutely amazing. So for one of our viewers that just heard the offer from Libby, get that in there. You can do it right now. I wouldn't wait. And Brian, what do you want to say about the fact that the show is recorded, so if somebody happens to see this after?
Right. If you happen to see this afterward, of course, the giveaway has already occurred by then. In fact, I was typing in the email as fast as I could to see if I could win. No, I'm just kidding. But
you can't get it.
But Kathy hit the nail on the head. I was going to say the exact same thing about the price point, and Libby, you said thank you, but to you I say thank you on behalf of everyone who needs access to this kind of information. Too often, I mean, Kathy and I have been to seminar after seminar of late, and they come up on stage. We call them sometimes a sell-a-thon. They get up and they give a lot of great value, tons of great value. I mean, we write notes so fast our hands literally hurt. But at the end, there's always something for sale, and typically it's at least $2,000. $1,997, $3,000, and what they are offering, it isn't any greater value than what you are offering, and you are offering it to the masses, and you are going to help the people who need the help the most, which are those that may not have that kind of money. They need the money, and this can help them get to that point one step at a time. That's beautiful. So thank you for providing the service at that incredible price.
My pleasure. And
you know, asking to repeat it, if you will. A couple people said, "Can you please repeat that?"
Okay, it's
email.
It's Libby, Libby, at LibbyGill, GILL.com.
Too late. I've already
won. So that's my direct email. It's going to come right to me. And if you don't make it in time, go to myaccountabilityclub.com, because as you mentioned the price point, and thank you about that. I'm a big believer in giving value. I really am quite serious about that. And I wanted to get it right. I will up the price. There will definitely come a point. But I wanted to get it right first. I didn't want anybody to I didn't want to learn on their dime.
That's refreshing.
So I wanted to make sure they got every penny and more. I wanted them to walk away and say, this is a real bargain. And then when I've got it there, and I've got a wealth of materials and tools and all the calls that they can access online, I mean, there were already a dozen on there, and now it's going to double. Then, at some point, when I'm comfortable that they're going to get so much more than they're paying for, then I'll take the price up and I'll charge them more for the dual tracks. But right now, happy to do that.
And by the way, for everyone listening...
And somebody, if they're really fast typists, are going to get it for free. What's that?
I was going to say, for everyone listening, we had absolutely no idea Libby was going to spring that upon us, and that is fantastic. We really appreciate that. Really appreciate that. That was
my pleasure.
Very gracious.
Well, you know, something that I would like to interject here. We're at almost 7:15, and I know that we started late, but there is absolutely one thing that I would love to ask Libby before we start wrapping it up, because I know that the people were hanging on with us before. So if that's okay,
sure.
The one thing I wanted to ask is, you led the PR and brand launch for the Dr. Phil show.
Yeah.
So I want to know, what was that like?
It was a hoot. It was really fun to. I was recruited for that. It was really fun. They flew me to Harpo Studios, Oprah's production company, and I met with everybody in the big conference room. And And it was a lot of fun to really help Dr. Phil, who's a really brainy guy. He was known as kind of that Oprah foil, you know, and it was really about helping him make sure people understood that he had something new and different to offer, and that he was quite the standalone solo act. And as you can see, he would say, "How's that working for you?" It worked out pretty well, and I'm proud to have been part of the launch. So I still have great fun branding and working with entrepreneurs who, and honestly, there's not a huge difference between what I did with him and what a micro business startup does, because it's really about the strategic effort and the brand messaging that you craft, how you differentiate yourself in your marketplace, more than having tons of money and dollars to throw at it. It's not about that. It's about the crafting of a core message and articulating that value to your audience.
That's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I'm gonna say my part here and tell you thank you so very much for taking your time to come on and share with us and our viewers. Libby, you are just absolute magic. Your My Accountability Club is a phenomenal site, and I just encourage everybody to take a look at it. I'm going to go back through there myself. It's just, again, the price point for what you give in content is just unbelievable. And she also mentioned, for those of you out there, that she is going to be going up in price at some point. So absolutely don't miss the opportunity to get involved with that now. And also take a look at her book, You Unstuck, and get that, to take a read of that. So I'm going to say, for me, thank you so much for coming on tonight, and I'm going to turn it back over to my friend Brian here.
Well, Kathy, you're welcome to leave, but Libby, if you'll stick around for another hour, let's just keep. No, I'm kidding. That was.
I tell my accountability club, I'll be the last one on the line. I'll stick around as long as anybody wants to talk.
Oh my goodness!
So thank you so much. It was a real pleasure and an honor, and I learned some new things from you as well.
Oh, and
we have some viewers.
I'm sorry, Kathy. What were you saying?
Or we've got viewers that are saying, "Great session, thank you, excellent session."
Yes.
Great, Mike. Thank you. I appreciate your comments.
Brian, back to you. Sorry about that.
And Kathy and I thank you, Libby, so much for taking your valuable time to come on, to go through the technical challenges that we did together, for sticking there with us as well as our viewers. Thank you all for sticking with us on this show. What we like to do, Libby, at the end of each show is give our guest speaker a couple minutes to leave a summary or a parting shot of your choice, and then we will close up with a quick little musical segment.
Sure. Well, I think I'll just give you one of my favorite proverbs, which is it's a Buddhist proverb, and it is simply, if you're headed in the right direction, all you have to do is keep on walking. And I'm a big believer in that. And to those of us, myself and you both included, that are dedicated to just help people head in that right direction, I hope they'll just keep on walking with us. So thank you for letting me be here.
Thank you so much. Kathy, as usual, thank you for your partnership, your friendship, and for always being there when troubles arise. You're there to save us. The glue that holds this ship together, I tell you that. We'd like to thank everyone for viewing us live on this show. And we will be back next week with another guest. Libby, maybe down the road, it would be fantastic to have you back, because there is so much more that you have to offer. We can tell. Would love to actually get involved in your accountability club as well. But without further ado, I'd like to respect everyone's time who's been on with us, and thank you once again for staying on late. And we will see you once again next week. Bye-bye now.
Good night.